Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the ukulele sessions. So I'm going to start today with a little quiz. What do you get if you cross an awesome ukulele player with an awesome ukulele teacher, with someone who runs an awesome shop, someone who runs an awesome venue, someone who is a great singer-songwriter, and someone who is a really nice guy with a beard? I'll tell you what you get. You get Matt Stead. Okay, if you haven't heard of Matt and you're in the ukulele world, I'll be surprised. Let's break them down individually. First of all, Matt is a brilliant ukulele player. And he's one of these guys that covers all the bases. I've seen him playing classical, I've seen him playing pop, I've seen him do claw hammer. Great player and a great performer, always popular at the festivals. He's also an incredibly good teacher. I think one of the reasons that Matt is such a good teacher is A, he's such a people person, you cannot help but love Matt to bits. And B, he's so good at all styles. And he's very patient with people. So, if you talk to any of his students, they only have wonderful things to say about him. Now, Matt also runs the Ukulele Room, which is a brilliant shop based down in the Forest of Dean. If you are after a ukulele, you really cannot do any better than go to Matt. You can go to Amazon, you can go to these other places and you can save yourself £1, but it will not be set up properly. Well, it might be, but it probably won't be. I know for a fact that Matt sets up every single ukulele that goes through his shop. If you haven't been to his shop, do so. It is beautiful. He's got some amazing ukuleles. He starts at the sort of the £50 range and he goes right up to the exclusive luthier made ones. And it's a place that's just got a great vibe about it. Not only does he set all his ukuleles up, but he gives a fantastic service. Any problems, he sorts them immediately. He's very knowledgeable. He will sell you the right ukulele. Now, the Ukulele Room is also a wonderful venue. Matt has been responsible for bringing some of the best players over to England. I had the pleasure of seeing James Hill at the Ukulele Room, and he has also brought over many other great players. It's quite an intimate place, so a lot of the time, as well as doing concerts, he does workshops there. So not only do you get to see these performers, but then you get to learn from them as well. And I think he's really set the standard for what's going on there. Now, prior to being a bit of a ukulele guru, Matt was in a fantastic band, A Fine Day for Sailing. He's a great singer-songwriter and we had a really great chat about that. He still writes and he's written some stuff recently on the ukulele that is now on the ukulele grades. So it's great to see. I think it's the RGT books that are in grade 5, so it's great to see that he's got stuff there. And he's got a great back catalogue of songs as well. Some of them pop, some of them indie. He's also done some jazz stuff on the ukulele and it's all really great to listen to. The other thing about Matt is he's got some really exciting stuff going on. As well as running the uke room, he's got his own personal ukulele brand coming out that I know he has worked so hard on. I've seen some pictures of it and it's very contemporary looking. This isn't something that's just going to sit alongside other ukuleles. This is an exciting ukulele and I know Matt's worked really hard on it and I expect it to be very successful. The other thing about Matt is he's so nice. He's just a great guy. He runs these weekends and ukulele weekends and everybody has such a ball at them, such great fun. It's like it's more of a family thing to Matt. I mean, I know he's a family man, but when he runs these events, they're just such good fun. If you do get a chance to go to one of them, I can't recommend them enough. A, you'll learn loads and B, you will make so many good friends. So sit back, enjoy this interview. Matt's got loads of interesting stuff to say about his past, his present and his future. It was an absolute pleasure talking to Matt. So here it is, an interview with Matt Stead. Start by telling us a little bit about your childhood and when you first realised that music was so important to you.
Yeah, good question. So I guess I always grew up around music. Like my mum and dad were both kind of big pop fans, so I grew up with the songs of John Lennon and Paul McCartney and the Beatles and all the '60s stuff. Um, but I guess I played violin as well at primary school, all the usual, tried clarinet at comprehensive school, but I was absolutely terrible at clarinet. I was, in fact, until about 20 years ago, I was awful at reading music. And I used to cheat. So we'd be in class, and rather than reading the music, I'd try and copy what everyone's fingers were doing on the clarinet. It's just completely hopeless. So I used to get shouted at all the time in that lesson. So I guess I did have music at school, but it was really when I was a teenager, I was like 13, I think I picked up, my mum and dad bought me my first guitar. I was a child of the 80s and then the 90s, so I guess the Charlatans and then Oasis and Blur and all the Britpop stuff, it got me playing. So I played guitar really for my teenage years, and that's what really got me into music. I think that's the same for a lot of people. You have formal music lessons, but I think when you pick up like a guitar or something that you really love, you're learning on your own terms then, aren't you? Which is I think is brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think, to be fair, your musical background's pretty similar to mine, to be honest. I think we've got very similar tastes. Okay, fantastic. I wanted to, before we sort of come on to all things ukulele, which I'm sure people are itching to hear you talk about, I wanted to talk about your band history a little bit, if that's okay. Your previous band, A Fine Day for Sailing, great band, very, to me, of that sort of late 80s indie, sort of the C86 scene, which some people of our age will remember, crossed with a little bit of Lightning Seeds, quite poppy there. Really good stuff. Just wanted you to talk us through that and how you were writing at that time. Was it you'd sit with an acoustic and you'd take a song to the band, or was it more a collaborative thing?
Yeah, sure. So I guess that was one of my big influences in terms of my music, is the C86 scene and the kind of the 80s stuff. So I got, after kind of Britpop era stuff, I kind of looked, I think it's the same with everyone, you look back in time as you get older. So now I've gone right back to early blues and jazz, so I've got it even further. But I guess the 80s was the next thing to look back up from the 90s. And I got really into there was a record label in Bristol, and I spent a lot of my life in Bristol, so it's quite important to me, called Sarah Records.
I was just going to say, were you into Sarah Records?
Yeah. So I was massively into like the Field Mice, and Your Kids and bands like that. Felt, who I'm massively into. And funnily enough, Felt, who are pretty much one of my favourite bands of all time. One of the girls that I teach in the London Youth Ukulele Orchestra, her dad was the drummer from Felt. How cool was that?
Brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant. But sorry, total sideline. But yeah, I got really into all that stuff. So my first band was actually like a really loud thrash kind of garage band. So we used to play a lot of kind of 60s beat music and stuff like that. And that was the band that kind of became relatively big. So we played, not huge, but we travelled around Europe and we played some quite big stages, which was really good fun. But I always yearned to play that kind of C86 stuff. So when that band split up, I formed A Fine Day for Sailing. And that was in Devon originally, where I was living in Exeter at the time. And then some of us, we moved over to London and kind of worked from that. In terms of songwriting, really, it's a weird thing, Paul. I can't put my finger on it, because I have been asked this quite a lot, because I run sessions on songwriting as well. And it kind of came to me at the same time. So if I was writing a song, I'd kind of like have a feeling about what I wanted to write about. A lot of my earlier songs are quite autobiographical, which is quite depressing in a way, because they're all about splitting up from girls and things like that. But so I'd have a feeling, something I wanted to write about, and then I'd start kind of mucking about with chords, and the melody and the chords just seemed to come. They just seemed to fit together. And it's something I've been talking a lot about in my teaching now. A lot of people have been asking me about modes and things like that, and the way people write with them. But most of the pop musicians that I've read about and people that I know and talk to write quite naturally. So they might kind of unconsciously be writing in the Dorian mode, but they don't really have the formal training to know they're doing that. They just know that the chords fit together and they sound nice. And my advice for anyone that wants to get into songwriting is just listen to loads of your favourite music. Just really immerse yourself in it. I've particularly got into jazz recently, and the only way you can really pick up that stuff is to just listen to tons of it and immerse yourself. And then things come out naturally. I think if you haven't got much musical training and you just sit down and you say, these are the chords that fit in the key of C and I'm going to write a song using those, it'll sound a bit kind of hammy and not natural. So yeah, so it kind of came, it sounds really cheesy, but I guess because I listened to so much music, I mean, that's all I did at university. It's a miracle I got to be honest, because I spent my entire 3 years in record shops just buying secondhand vinyl and listening to music. And that was the way I kind of learned, to be honest.
Fantastic. Yeah, that Sarah Records vibe. I love that whole thing. Funnily enough, I was listening to some of that last night. I love the band Trembling Blue Stars. They a great. I can't remember the name of their album. It had ABBA on the Jukebox on it. That and I had that on 7-inch. And what I love about Sarah Records is it's jingle jangle pop, but there's something extra to it. There's that extra layer, isn't there? And I think in some ways it almost paved the way for the later Bristol movement, the Portishead and that, didn't it? It was, and I can so see that influence in A Fine Day for Sailing.
Yes, definitely there. I always wore my heart on my sleeve, so you can kind of see it. And yeah, I forget I'm really embarrassed now. I forget the guy's name from the Field Mice, but it was him that went on to form Trembling Blue Stars after the Field Mice split up. And I love his stuff. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting what you say about sort of getting into jazz and folk afterwards. I think when you're kind of a 25-year-old indie kid, if someone said, hey, you're going to like jazz, you'd be, no, yeah. that's not going to happen. But it happens to us all. And it's interesting because you then moved on, correct me if I'm wrong, this is where the Wend comes into it, isn't it? And you released the album Autobiography. And I've had a listen to that. And what I love about it, it sits perfectly between folk and jazz, which is quite clever actually. So did you find, was that a natural progression, or perhaps you had to force yourself to take that step, or how did that come about?
I think I think it comes back to what you listen to, and I think it was just what I was kind of into. So after a lot of the indie pop stuff, like I said earlier, I kind of went back, so I got into like a lot of 60s. And I really got into the kind of English folk scene, Fairport Convention and that sort of stuff, and kind of went back through a lot of their back catalogue. So I was listening to that, and I think it kind of organically just comes out when I'm playing. So when I do write stuff on the ukulele, it tends to be that I'll just sit down and I'm not conscious of a key or anything like that. I'll just start noodling away. And I think just stuff I've been listening to subconsciously kind of seeps out, to be honest. So I was listening to a lot of folk music back then. I was really, really influenced quite a lot in my own songwriting after the bands, when I started doing more solo stuff, by Nick Drake. Yeah. And of course, he's got that beautiful voice. I can only dream of emulating that. But also his guitar style, you can sometimes hear some of that style in my ukulele playing. I'm kind of quite influenced by the way he finger picked and alternate tunings and things like that. So that started to come out. The Autobiography one's quite interesting because I've only really recently really got into jazz music. In fact, funnily enough, like you say, if people in my old bands knew what I was listening to, yeah. I can't stand that stuff. I like 3 minutes, pop songs, 3 chords and the truth sort of stuff. But I've massively got into it now. I absolutely love jazz music. So when we recorded Autobiography, I guess it was in that period where I was just really starting to deeply get into it. But I didn't massively understand how to play it myself, other than just kind of replicating what I heard. So to be totally honest, there's kind of Autobiographies are a half-hour piece of jazz folk ukulele music. And there's parts of the first half that I really don't like because I've immersed myself more and I've learned how to play jazz, and I think I'm a much better player now. So when I listen back to it, I kind of cringe at some of the really simple lines and stuff. But it is what it is. That's, I didn't have the ability and I didn't understand kind of the jazz scales in the way I do now. So I was just kind of experimenting with them. So it kind of just happened naturally, really.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't look back and cringe. I gave it a really good listen and enjoyed it a lot. And I think it's a very clever record, actually. Someone who's come up a lot in these ukulele sessions that we talk about is Lyle Ritz, and he certainly influenced my playing when it comes to sort of jazz ukulele. And I think, you know, diminished chords and all that on the ukulele, they just work, don't they? Who knows why, but they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that stuff, I guess that stuff kind of came quite natural. When I was doing Wens, like the actual piece, the Wens, that's got a lot of kind of what people would think of as traditional jazz chords and progressions in it, but then kind of melded into that kind of folk background stuff that I do. So yeah, La Ritz was most certainly an influence. I love his stuff. And not just the kind of the style he played and the like the notes he played and the way he put things together, but his tone.
Yeah,
because he always took the tenor ukulele down to baritone tuning, and it has that really kind of that lovely mellowness to it. And that's something I've been searching for in my own playing for ages. I think I'm quite a melancholy soul, and I'm kind of drawn to that really kind of, you know, that really mellowness you get when you play ukulele jazz, especially on a baritone. You get that kind of nice depth to it. And that's something that I've always tried to replicate, even when I'm playing in normal kind of GCA, re-entrant or OG tuning. I still try and play in a kind of legato smooth way, because I really love that, the kind of the smooth melancholy that you get from it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I was listening to Lyle's album last night, and the quality of the recording is amazing, considering it was I can't remember, was it 56 or something? I'm not even sure. Maybe it was later than that. But the actual quality of the recording is amazing, let alone the playing. Talking about sort of mellow sounds and that, it's interesting, because I had the luxury of having Kimo Hussey on here a couple of weeks ago. He's put in a lot of his ukes into B-flat 6, just putting them all down a tone, and that gives a mellow sound as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've experimented with that myself, actually, and I think if I was just going to play on my own, I probably would have more of my ukes tuned that way. The only thing is just pure laziness. I'm not a big fan of transposing on the fly. I just think you want your playing to be as natural as possible. So if you're putting another barrier into what you're doing and you're thinking, oh, I should be playing a G rather than an F, or the other way around, or what, that's the only reason I don't tune in B flat more, really, because I play a lot with other people. But for solo stuff, it's perfect. It just really brings out that mellowness of the instrument, for sure.
Yeah, I think the strings feel a bit softer as well, don't they? They don't feel quite so taut when you're putting it down a bit, which I like.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to move on to all things ukulele, which is what you are probably best known for. Just a quick thing, people, do check out A Fine Day for Sailing. It's on Bandcamp. I had a really good listen to it the other day. If you're a fan of indie music or just pop music, check it out. It's great. Now, your ukulele playing, you're well known as a teacher and performer. I've had the luxury of seeing you do both, and you're marvelous at both. You're also very wide ranging in your style. So can you just tell us a bit about your specific ukulele style, how you sort of ended up, you know, who influences you, etc.?
Yeah, again, I guess it comes back to all that music that I kind of listened to growing up. So I guess, you know, even like when we go back to that C86 stuff we talked about, the kind of jangliness of the guitars you mentioned.
Yeah.
So when I play instrumental music, when I'm arpeggiating, I tend to do it relatively quickly, and I do more arpeggiating than I do block chords, because it brings out that jangliness of the guitar, wrong instrument, which is that's a avoided slip, which is probably something that goes back to that form of music. But it's, again, I think it's taste, really. I kind of like. I prefer instrumental ukulele music to listen to in general. I just like that. I like to hear all the little parts, and because I've turned into a bit of a muso. Again, young Matt would have hated me saying that.
Yeah.
I love listening to chord changes and working out what's going on and hearing the beautiful melody lines and everything. And when you have purely instrumental music, that really comes out. So I've kind of tried to do that in my own pieces, really. So I kind of draw on that folk side of things, but then melding it with my kind of more recently discovered kind of love of jazz and putting the two together, really. And then just trying to come up with kind of interesting progressions and melodies. And I really, really strongly believe in the emotional value of music. So a lot of my pieces, in fact, it probably doesn't do me any favours as a performer, because sometimes people want performers to sing good time songs. But when people say like a piece of music that I did touch them, like on Autobiography, I think there's this really sad section using these minor chords. And I remember Caroline from the Hedge Inspectors said she had to pull over in a car because she was listening to it and she became a bit too emotional. And that was like the biggest compliment anyone ever gave me. I never said that to her, you know, obviously, so thanks. But I really I try and use chord progressions and melodies that kind of wrench at the heartstrings. And that's kind of, if I do that in a piece, that's when I feel like I've succeeded.
Yeah, I think I was reading an interview with an indie band who you may or may not remember, Whipping Boy from I think they were early 90s,
Oh, yeah.
they were Irish. And they didn't have great sales, but the guitarist in an interview said, he was asked, would you swap those sales for the fact that people hold your record in such high esteem? And he said, no, the fact that people have written to me, and one of the anecdotes was exactly what you said. Someone said, I had to pull over while I was listening to that music. And he said, I wouldn't swap that for anything, because, you know, you can't put a price on that, can you? Now, when it comes to writing on the ukulele, you've written some stuff for RGT recently. And funny enough, I was talking to Colin Tribe about this the other day, and I wanted to get your take on it. I think your pieces, I can't remember if they're grade 5 or grade 8, but either way, do you write a piece and think this is going to be grade 8, it's got to be tricky, or do you turn it around that you already have a piece and you fit it to the grade? And how has your writing evolved over the years?
I guess I'll answer the last one first because I remember it better. So I guess the evolving thing is just my background in musical theory is just got a lot better over the years as well. So it's quite instinctive, my writing, when I was in bands, whereas now I will actually think about using things like modes and and kind of something I use is I quite often play in like the relative minor when I'm doing little melody lines as opposed to the major and things like that. So I guess it started to become a bit more technical, but I always make sure if I listen back to something and it sounds technical rather than having any kind of emotional resonance, I'll just ditch it because that's still really important. In terms of the grades, I guess there's a little of both. So if I'm writing a piece from scratch, some of the pieces that I've done for RGT, which is now at London College of Music, who do the grades for, some of it's some pieces that I've already written or arranged, and I've kind of I've changed around a bit to fit the music. But the ones that I have written for scratch for that, I have kind of had in mind the rough level, not necessarily right down to grade, but I mean, if I was going to write a piece for grade 1 or 2, I would try and keep it as, you know, a lot more simple as possible. Whereas, you know, grades 5 through to 8 are going to be a lot more difficult. So I write with that in mind. And then, yeah, when you get the final piece, then there is a lot of changing. So the pieces that I've already had published for LCM, there was a lot of back and forth between me and the editor. So he would suggest there needs to be some more kind of technical passages in this. So we'd look at things like, you know, vibrato, artificial harmonics and things like that. But I do think it's important not to throw those in just for the sake of it. The piece still has to work because, you know, I've been a student on the other end as well. And if a piece isn't enjoyable to play, like, you know, you could just have a scale, couldn't you, with all the technical stuff in? Yeah. But it would just be so it's still got to be an interesting piece. But so it's a balance of both, I think, to be honest, mate. I think there's kind of writing roughly for the level you're at and then kind of really getting down to the nitty gritty in the editing stage to kind of add things and take away.
Lovely.
And of course, some of it objective as well, isn't it? Subjective, sorry. So some of it, you know, a lot of the people that have written for the LCM grades in the past have been guitar players, and I've had to really say, look, on the ukulele, this is a whole different, you know, level of difficulty as to what it was on guitar.
Yeah, fantastic. So if I said to you now, Matt, you've got an hour, go and write a piece, would you sit and noodle on the, I love that phrase, noodle on the ukulele and see what you came up with, or would you in your head have a melody and then thicken it up with chords? How would you actually sit and do it?
Probably noodling. Yeah, pretty much most of the stuff I write on ukulele, the instrumental stuff comes from noodling. So you start noodling away in a particular key, and you might come up with like a little melody or something. I kind of write in two ways. It depends whether I'm writing or arranging, to be honest, Paul. So if I'm writing, it tends to come from kind of noodles, and then I work that up into involving more chords. Because generally, when I noodle, which just got a uke here, could just be like just playing around with a few notes on the A string. It tends to be mostly melodies when I do that,
Yeah.
and then I start to add chords that will work. But the other way I write is arranging. So some of the pieces I've done for the grades, I've taken already existing pieces, like I did Kamakani Kaili Aloha, which is an old Hawaiian piece. So I've got the basic melody and some of the chords, and then I've put it into a key that I think will be sympathetic to the ukulele, and then added certain sort of technical aspects and stuff. And that's a real challenge, because a lot of those pieces, the Hawaiian pieces, the melody tended to be played by like a slap key guitar or something. So you're having to turn something into chord melody, which is the melody and the chords at the same time, as opposed to a rhythm player and then someone playing the melody over the top. And I love that challenge. That's something that I really enjoy doing as a process anyway. So yeah, that's kind of two strands of writing for that, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you think about back to your time in A Fine Day for Sailing, you might write some chords and a melody, but in the back of your head, I guess you're thinking, right, the drums are going to come in there. I'm going to write a little bass line there, might have keys. On a ukulele, it's just you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of cool thing about the ukulele, I think. And I've heard people say this before with other instruments, but when you play a song just on the ukulele, acoustically, you really see if the song works. Because when you play in a band, there's a lot of impact that all those other players that have, and you can just jam a piece which isn't very interesting and still make it sound quite cool. But when you strip it back to just vocals and a ukulele, or just a melody on the ukulele, you really hear if it works. It's right out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very bare, isn't it? Right,
Yeah.
lovely. That has been an interesting conversation, and now I want to move on to the uke room, which you run. Which is, if people don't know, I'm sure nearly everybody knows about it. It's so much more than a shop. It's a shop. It's a venue. It's a community. It's everything. I'm going to chuck a Bob Dylan quote at you here. Bob Dylan once said that a man is rich if he gets up, goes to bed, and in between he does the thing he loves. And I think when I think of that lovely phrase, I kind of think of you actually, Matt. So can you tell us a little bit about how the uke rooms came about, what the ethos is behind it? Sorry, the uke room, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So it was kind of by accident. I think a lot of the things that have happened in my life have been that way, and I've just kind of gone with them, to be honest. So I've been teaching for many years, and I was teaching from my home, and students would come to me for ukulele lessons, or I'd go to their place. And I just got kind of embarrassed of them having to sit at my breakfast table and sweep cornflakes from underneath them as they're trying to this complex ukulele music. So I was really looking for a kind of a venue where I could take my teaching really in the first case. And there's a brilliant ukulele player a lot of you will have heard of called Stephen Sprout. He lives in English Bicknor in the Forest of Dean, not far from me. And originally we were going to kind of do it as a partnership, because he was looking for somewhere to teach as well. But Stephen then, he got a new job and it just didn't work out. He had to travel a lot, so he wasn't able to do it. So I kind of carried on myself. And so Stephen actually found the Hearts Barn location for me, which I absolutely loved and fell in love with straight away. So originally it was just a space for teaching, but then of course, like my students, they wanted to progress from beginner ukes to something else, and they were always asking where they could go. And there was a Southern Ukulele store at the time down in Bournemouth, which is a brilliant shop, and I still shop there even though I have my own place. And Matt was just opening his place up in Carlisle, Matt Warren's World of Uke. Well, but of course we're kind of right in the middle, so it's quite a long way for people to go. So if they wanted to try something out in person, they didn't necessarily want to travel. So I just took on an account with a ukulele supplier and start with 5 ukuleles on the wall, and then it kind of grew from there. So when I sold those 5, rather than keeping the money myself, I just reinvested it and 5 became 10, and it kind of expanded quite organically. But once it did start to happen, and it's something that I always wanted to happen, when we used to practice when we used to record in a band, A Fine Day for Sailing, our studio was below Duke of York in London. So I've always had like, it planted a seed in the back of my mind. I've always wanted to do this, but it kind of happened by lucky kind of accident as well. But I always wanted the Uke Room to be like a really friendly, welcoming place, and hopefully, you mentioned really kindly in your question, you kind of mentioned in your question about that kind of that feeling of the place. So you've been taught at one of our retreats, and hopefully you've seen it yourself. I kind of try and make it like a really big family place. So Sharon, my wife, helps out, the kids turn up, and we kind of try and welcome everyone as if they're part of a big extended family, because that's what the ukulele community is, really, isn't it? I mean, you know, a lot of us are on Facebook, and we've got to know each other. And some of my best friends now, sounds funny, that, doesn't it? Some of my best friends are ukulele players. But some of what I consider my best friends are from that scene now, because it does become like one extended family. So I've tried to make it a really welcoming, encouraging place where anyone can learn. And we provide some really nice ukuleles and some really kind of high levels of learning, but we're not snobby about it. So, you know, I'm just as happy to sell someone a £50 beginner ukulele if it's the right one for them. And likewise, I take on beginner ukulele players, and I just want to nurture everyone, really.
Well, you've certainly achieved your aims there. I mean, I've been down a few times, and it has. As soon as you step in there, it makes me want to smile. And it always seems to be sunny there as well, actually. When I come down to the Uke Room. And it's a wonderful place. I love the concerts that you put on as well. And I was wondering, going back to your sort of style, I see your style as a player as fairly eclectic. You know, I think certain players you can pigeonhole, myself included. You're a lot more eclectic, and I wonder, is that because you've had some of the world's best players come there? Do you watch them and then go away and think, right, I'm going to take a little bit of what James Hill has just done, etc., and let that influence your playing? How does that work when you get these great players come down?
I think, yeah, there is a little bit of kind of studying how they do it and taking it from that. And the other thing, and I don't know if you find this, Paul, it'd be interesting to know if you do, because I know, like you like me, we teach. I mean, sometimes we do 13-hour days, so we're teaching all the time, right? And we're teaching particular techniques and that other artists might do, and kind of and ways of playing. So I think it's just natural that by doing something for so many hours a day, that kind of it kind of seeps into your own playing, whether you want it to or not, which is interesting anyway. But I mean, we've been really lucky. We had James Hill come to play with us. We've had Sarah Mansell and Craig Chi. And I'm stood there, even when they're teaching, I'm stood there as a student myself at the back, kind of either taking kind of hints and tips of how I could teach, but also how I can play. I kind of thinking, gosh, you know, like Sarah and Craig, when you come down, they're very clean players. I love how clean and soft their playing is. And after they came for that first retreat, I spent a lot of time with my own playing, just seeing if I could kind of clean it up, get rid of any little buzzes and really legato it. And then you get things like James Hill. James Hill, for ages, Paul, I've got my uke here, he does this thing where, and it always baffled me, where he kind of gets more notes out than you imagine there should be.
Yeah.
And they call it a triplet technique, a sort of... So it's like more notes there, but your hand is just moving like that, but you're hearing like all these notes. And when he came to stay, I made a point of standing right near the front and just absorbing it all in, trying to work out what it did. And I did manage to work out one of his techniques, which I absolutely love, and and that has influenced my own playing. So when I do kind of more bluegrass style, I play with what he calls triplets to kind of tease more notes out. So yeah, but James Hill's always been a massive influence to me as well, because I love the way he teaches as well. So I've taught using his ukulele way in the past, and lots of hints that I've picked up from him. He's also the most rock and roll kind of professional teacher I've had, because I think you might have been there. He was late for a workshop, about an hour or so late, and I had to just kind of come up with something to keep everyone happy whilst he was waiting. So it's because he just misjudged the British traffic. But when he pulled up, he was like, you know, he's all covered in sweat. He'd been on the motorway and he's stuck in. And I thought, gosh, he'll be a bit of a prima donna here. He'll want to go to the bathroom, clean up, and a cup of tea. And he literally just got out the car, ripped off one shirt, put another one on, walked in with his ukulele tuned up, and just started. I thought, wow, amazing. Yeah. So great. Just quickly, the other influence, there's a guy that doesn't get talked about as much as I think he should do in the ukulele scene, and that's Corey Fujimoto, who works with the ukulele site, Hawaii Music Supply. And his playing's been a massive influence on me, because he plays kind of in a very very fluid kind of instrumental style, really, really kind of beautiful instrumental pieces. So he was a massive influence on me. I listened to his first album again and again and again, and tried to replicate some of that style of playing in my own pieces as well.
It's great that then that filters down, because funnily enough, you were the first person that I saw do the triplet strum, and I was sort of secretly, I was sort of stood beside you watching, oh, what's going there, and then went away and sort of studied that a little bit. And after I'd seen you do it, I think there's a video of Joe Brown doing it actually, and he teaches it in quite an interesting way. And the thing is, you know, everybody does that different, but it's great that you watch and, you know, learn from these people, and then people watch and learn from you. So it's sort of all sort of organic, isn't it? Which is fantastic.
And I have to say, just whilst you're there, Paul, I have nicked bits of your teaching as well, but I hope you don't mind, because you're a great teacher as well. The Dolce Ponte thing has stuck with me for ages, so I really try and use that in my teaching nowadays, playing at the neck and then.
Well, as long as you're not saying, picking up things and saying, like, this is how you don't do it. Paul does this. This is how you don't do it. That's fine. So it's exciting times for the uke room at the moment. You've got a ukulele commissioned, haven't you? You've been instrumental. Oh, there you go, instrumental in having a ukulele built and designed, and you're now going to start selling it. I'm really excited to hear about this, because you have such a knowledge of ukuleles. I know how much effort you put into setting them up, each ukulele that you sell. So much experience, and all of that is drawn together, and now you've got the Forest ukulele, I think that is the correct name. I'd love to hear about this, Matt. How did this come about? What are the plans for it?
Cool. So this is something I've been working on for years and years and years, and I think it's like a lot of products. People just see the final product and think, there it is, but this has been for yonks. Probably even before the uke room, I was looking at doing this, because people who know me know that I'm obsessed with buying ukuleles and selling them on myself. So I'm like I've always been the Dow boy of ukuleles for some time. So I've been looking for that kind of holy grail of ukulele for myself for some time anyway, a sound that I really like. So I got in touch with a lot of factories around the world and got samples from them. And then the samples that I did like, we digged into further. So it'd be like, this is what I like about it. This is what I'm not so keen on. Can you change this? So these ukuleles that we've got produced at the moment, even right down to the kind of the bracing and everything, I've chosen it specifically for the sound, because the sound is the most important thing, and the tone, in my opinion. So we've gone for quite an unusual bracing pattern on the top. It doesn't have quite as many braces as some ukuleles. Soft tops, because I think it provides the best tone. I've always loved playing spruce or cedar tops or redwood tops, always that soft top and then hard back and sides. And then we've really worked on things like, when they arrive, I'm setting them up myself. So that's something I've been really keen on as well, because even some really nice ukulele brands, some of their ukuleles aren't set up quite as great as I'd like. And that's really just the action of the strings off the fretboard, right down to the frets all being completely level and polished up and everything. So I'm really anal about it. I want it to be just perfect. So the ukulele is being built in the Far East, shipped to me, and I'm doing all the setups myself, including installing the tuners that I like. So again, I'm really anal. I love the look of. In fact, I have the tuners on this one. I haven't got the Forest one in front of me, but these are called Go-To UPTs. I love the look of a friction peg coming off the back of the ukulele rather than sticking out the sides.
Yeah.
But of the accuracy of a geared tuner. So these ones have got UPT tuners, which are geared tuners to look like friction pegs, which I love. So they're all being set up by hand. And as I say, it's been a kind of labour of love, and I'm really excited. Most of the ukes have come in now. I'm just waiting on a shipment of tuners to finish it off. And we have a website called forestukuleles.com. You can have a look if you like. I've just finished building that. And these are going to go into the market at kind of around the £400 or £500 category. So it's a real step up from kind of those, you know, beginner intermediate ukes that people might have started of. But they're not entirely unaffordable like some of the really, you know, high-end ones. I want them to be reasonably affordable. But I'm providing like a really deluxe gig bag with the logo, and even right down to the logo, Paul. I was so excited in designing it exactly the way I like. We've got this little tree with the bird, which represents the forest. Because anyone who knows anything about me knows how in love I am with the Forest of Dean where I live, and I'm kind of really keen to kind of link that into the kind of ethos as well.
I love the fact that you've been involved right from the bracing of it. That's incredible. Funny enough, I had a wonderful conversation with Sean from the ukulele friend the other day. And we were talking about the bracing on very, very old ukuleles and how they can actually put a camera into the whole of a ukulele. Into the sound hole to look at the bracing, see how it's changed over the years. I'm sure these are going to be fantastic ukuleles. I saw a picture of one. It had quite a contemporary look.
Yeah, so we've got, I'm trying to see if I've got one, but I haven't got one in the room with me, Paul. I wish I had one, but you can have a look at, as I say, on my website, Forest Ukuleles. Yeah, we have, it was one of the things that drew me to this particular manufacturer. We have like a headstock which has like a zigzag kind of design on it, and all the tuners are lined up in a row, and I just think it looks really neat. And all the ukes that I've played, I'm a big fan of like Jake McClay, who makes ukes called Hive ukuleles in out in the States, and Bo Hannum and people like that. And I kind of like those builders that use really beautiful tone woods, but they have a slightly more kind of contemporary feel in terms of the looks. I just think it kind of looks a bit classy. But the other thing, to be honest, Paul, is that there are already amazing manufacturers making traditional Hawaiian ukes. So why make another kanalea? They do it so well. Why make another koaloa, you know, koula? So I wanted something a bit different, really, to kind of form our own niche in the market, and something that stands out in the crowd, really.
Yeah, great. Well, I've seen some early pictures of it that you put up, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing one in action. I think it's a great project, and I think you are the perfect man for it with all your experience. So just moving on, with the uke room, what's the best and the worst thing about running it?
What a good question. To be honest, there are so many good things. I mean, I do count myself blessed. Like, I've been quite lucky in the way it did fall into things and that, but at the same time I put the legwork in. I mean, I've been teaching for years and years and years, so it came together quite quickly at the end of it. But I think if I hadn't done all those years of teaching and building up my knowledge, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah. But I do feel lucky the way it's worked out, and I feel very blessed. And the best things about it, the students coming in, every time I teach a student and they go away with a smile on their face, it just makes my day. And that can be from the smallest thing. Sometimes it's even that they've just, there's a lady that I've taught, I won't give her name, but who's been recently recovering from cancer treatment. And she come in and she's an absolute beginner. She can just about strum a few chords. But she said, just to kind of come and make music, just like to make any kind of music, however great or bad it is, you know, just made such a difference to her life. And to have something to go and, you know, groups to go to and meet people, it just makes all the difference. And a lot of the people that come to my groups now in the evenings, they've become really close friends. I see people playing together and go down the pub together. And, you know, a lot of people that weren't kind of mixing in groups. I remember once sitting in my ukulele troupe, which is a thing I run on a Tuesday night. And we had so many people. We had the oldest lady in our group. She won't mind me saying it. She's 90 last year. And then I think the youngest person was in their 30s. And I remember just sitting there and looking around and thinking, if it wasn't for the ukulele, would all these people be sat in one room together socializing? And I think it's brilliant, you know, bringing all those people together and sharing views. Yeah, so that learning side is really important. It really, you know, that kind of fills my heart. And also the selling side, when you get someone walking away with a uke that they absolutely love, that's when it gets you as well, because you know they're going to take it away, enjoy it, and play it. And that's, again, that comes back to the ethos at the uke room, Paul. So I won't sell a ukulele to someone if I don't think it's right for them. If someone's like lusting after a £1,500 canalea, but I don't think it suits their style of playing, I don't think it's where they are at the moment, and I don't think it will work for them, I will recommend something that's a lot, you know, a lot different. So when you get someone, they find the one for them, and everyone does eventually. They try lots out, but you see them coming back to the same ones all the time. That's really special as well. And I guess the negative side, the only thing really is just the running your own business. I'm sure every self-employed person knows this. So there's the jokey side and a serious side. The jokey side is I can be laying in bed at 3 o'clock at night trying to remember like the Dorian mode or something. It's just somehow it sticks to my head, and it's like I have to look this up and make sure I've got it before the next morning. But the more serious one is, yeah, you never stop worrying about your business, especially in these times with COVID and everything. I'm sure we'll be fine, but when you lock that door at, you know, 5 o'clock, I'd like to say 5 o'clock, but you know, as well as me, sometimes it's 10 o'clock at night because we do long days. You don't stop thinking about the business. You can't then just switch off and go home and, you know, just switch off from it. So I guess that's the only kind of negative side, really, but yeah, much more positive.
Yeah, that's nice that you didn't suddenly reel off hundreds of negatives. In fact, I've got a feeling you struggled to find a negative there, which is lovely to hear. I think we've kind of touched on where the uke room is going with this new sort of the uke that you're the Forest Uke. What else does it hold, or is that where your main concentration is for the future on the uke room?
Just kind of constant expansion, to be honest, Paul, as well. Not in terms of necessarily space, but just what we do. So originally we just went towards kind of the kind of mid to high range ukuleles, but we've introduced a lot of beginner stuff. For the reasons I was talking about earlier, now we have a bigger shop, we have a bigger footfall, so we have a lot of beginners coming in. So we want something for everyone. So we've got, you know, ukuleles, we've got £30 starter ukes, but even those £30 starter ukes, I've sent about 50% of them back to the factory and I've set them up so they're nice. So kind of developing the stock, but I just constantly reinvest in it, to be honest, Paul. It's kind of like my baby, so I just like to see it grow. So we're always taking on new brands. We've got several new ones lined up for 2021. We were hoping to announce them this summer, but everything's been put back because, you know, getting things out from countries all around the world has been really difficult. But yeah, just kind of expansion in that ways. And same thing with the retreat, really. The retreat is really interesting. It's something that it's an annual ukulele retreat that we run every summer. Sadly, we had to postpone this summer, obviously. And even though we're keeping the amount of people really small, so we never have more than 45 people in the whole thing, we're really encouraging some of the best artists and teachers from around the world to come. So this year we were going to have Aaron and Nicole Kime, who are two of my favourite ukulele players and teachers. They'll be coming back hopefully next summer. So we're kind of expanding the teaching base as well to always bring new people in.
Fantastic. I mean, I think the uke room is a wonderful place, a wonderful venue, and whenever I go there, as soon as I approach it, I start smiling, and I always leave with a smile on my face. And I think you're doing a great job there. I know within the ukulele community, you're held in very high regards on many levels as a player, as a teacher, and as a great guy, just as a friendly guy. So, I'm going to ask you. Sorry, you look like you want to say something. Sorry, go on.
Oh, because you were just asking about the what's in store. I just remembered one thing. At the last ukulele retreat, I ran a ukulele hike to the top of the hill, which has beautiful over the hills where we are. And one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing in the next couple of years that came to me during the COVID breakdown, because I've been going on lots of family walks, socially distancing, of course. I'm really proud of the forest, and I really want to promote it as a place to come for tourism and people just to kind of, it really helps people's mental health. just to go for long walks in a forest and introduce them to the wildlife and everything. And I'm trying, at the moment, I'm working on a project, I'm not announcing it yet, but involving ukuleles and nature. So where people come to the forest to really kind of just recover and kind of reconvene with nature and go on long walks and meditate and really kind of be at peace with themselves, but whilst involving a ukulele aspect as well. So that's something that's kind of a little bit secret, and I've just hinted at there for the future.
We'll watch this space. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I was chatting to someone the other day, and they were saying that one of the things about when you're playing a ukulele is that you're playing it close to your heart, and it's right to your heart, and there's something special about that, isn't there? Now, this has been a thoroughly interesting chat. I've really enjoyed it. Something I want to ask you, Matt, that I ask everybody at the end of these interviews: if you could go on a car journey with anyone, past or present, where would you go? Who would you go with? What would be on the stereo? And I add another one now. What car would you drive? You must say a VW camper.
So, gosh, such a difficult one, isn't it?
You can have a lot of people here, Matt.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to offend anyone. Everyone can be my camper. So it sounds really, really woolly and everything, but I'm a massive family man, as you know. I love my wife and kids more than anything in the world. So I've always had the dream about touring around the States in a camper van. Paul knows, but some of you might not know. We both have T25 camper vans from the 1980s Ws, and we both love our camper van. So I'd love to. I don't know if I could ever get it over to the States, so I guess I'd have to hire one. But I always had the dream of doing, like Jack Kerouac did Route 66, going from to LA or the place in between, perhaps down to Mexico, back up via New Orleans, taking the family in the car and doing that. But to be honest, if we went down the more kind of mystical, kind of famous person route, I would love to hire Alexis, because it's what he drives, and I'd love to share a car journey with Larry David, because not a lot of people know this, but I have quite a sarcastic sense of humour, and I just find Larry David absolutely hilarious. I love Seinfeld, I love Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I love having a good moan. I have a happy personality, but if you get me on the right time, I love having a moan. So I'd like to get in his Lexus, and I'd like to drive around LA with Larry David, just moaning about everything, having a good laugh, and talking about Seinfeld. Perhaps when we pick up Heidi Swedberg on the way as well, because she was inside, so she could tell me about her memories as well. What music would I listen to? Do you know what? If I could only listen to one record for the rest of my life, it would probably be Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. I think it's an absolutely beautiful record. Interestingly as well, Lyle Ritz, one of our heroes, plays on it, double bass in this case, and just a beautiful jazz chords, beautiful writing, so I'd listen to that. And yeah, Alexis or a VW camper van. There you go.
Trouble with VW camp vans is you can't hear the music anyway, because there's so much rattling going on.
Yeah.
Matt, that's been fantastic. Sorry, I spoke over you. Go on.
The amount of money I've spent on that, doing up that T25 camper van in the last 2 years, I probably could have bought about 1,500 ukuleles.
Yeah, you and me both, my friend. Matt, that has been fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop record now. Let me just press end recording here. If I stop that,